warm welcome and a hearty good morning to all. Students, the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. So my advice is to put your best effort to study today to make your future shine. I'm sure you are enthusiastic to join in the session. So let's begin the session with a recap. Students, in the last session we had studied about the factors affecting photosynthesis. So we'll do a recap with this topic itself. The process of photosynthesis is affected by two types of factors, namely external factors and internal factors. The external factors include sunlight, temperature, carbon dioxide, water and minerals. The internal factors include chlorophyll, leaf anatomy, accumulation of end products, hormones, Ribosco performance, rate of chloroplast electron transport, and enzyme activity of Calvin cycle. Now we'll discuss one by one. Factors affecting photosynthesis. We'll discuss the effect of carbon dioxide. As the amount of carbon dioxide in the air increases, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. We have studied that when the amount of carbon dioxide in the environment increases, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. Now, what role water plays? Less water in the soil leads to stomatal closure, due to which the rate of photosynthesis reduces as there is less water in the cytoplasm and chloroplast. Now, you know that the roots are sucking water from the soil. So, if the water is less in the soil, then automatically the stomata will close up and the rate of photosynthesis also reduces because there is less availability of water, and due to this cytoplasm as well as chloroplast will also be facing lack of water. We have studied what role the sunlight plays. So more the intensity of sunlight, higher is the rate of photosynthesis. Means as the intensity of sunlight increases, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. Photosynthesis is maximum in red light, followed by blue light, and is least in green light. We have studied that photosynthesis is maximum at red light wavelength and followed by blue light, and it is the least in green light. The role of chlorophyll is that photosynthesis does not take place in plants or plant parts lacking chlorophyll. If there is no chlorophyll in the plants or plant part, photosynthesis will not take place. For example, if you consider the mushrooms, they are said to be non-green plants. They do not photosynthesize. They are not able to prepare their own food as they lack chlorophyll in them. Now, temperature, the rate of photosynthesis increases with the increase in temperature till 35 degrees Celsius. Till this peak is reached, photosynthesis rate is doubled for every 10 degrees Celsius rise. Now, it says that the temperature when reaches to 35 degrees Celsius, the photosynthesis rate also increases till 35 degrees Celsius. And this rate is doubled every 10 degrees. Every 10 degrees the temperature rises the rate of photosynthesis is doubled. Above this temperature, the rate of photosynthesis falls. Now after that it levels off when it reaches to 35 degrees Celsius. Above this temperature, the rate of photosynthesis falls. Why does it fall? It falls because as enzymes involved in the process of photosynthesis are destroyed, as they become denatured. So the rate of photosynthesis also decreases. Today, in this session, we will be discussing about respiration in plants. To start with the topic, we'll first understand that all living or non-living things need energy to do work. Without work, they cannot perform any work. Cars, scooters, motors, aeroplanes, they all need fuel, that is petrol, diesel, etc. to move on. Our body also is like a machine. As a machine needs fuel to work, so does our body needs fuel to perform various life processes. Now the question arises, from where do we get this energy? We all eat food, and the food that we eat is broken down into simpler forms by the process of digestion. And this we have studied in class 6th, that the food that we eat is digested into simpler forms, and then this digested food is absorbed by the intestine. If you remember that the villi in the intestine help in absorbing the liquid food material or the nutrients, and then these nutrients are passed on to the bloodstream. How then we get the energy stored in the food? This is done by oxidation of food materials. During oxidation, the oxygen combines with food we eat, liberating energy and carbon dioxide. Thus, during respiration, food is used up, thus liberating energy. Secondly, exchange of gases takes place. Oxygen is used up and carbon dioxide is given out. The process of production of energy and its utilization takes place all through the day. Energy released during breakdown of glucose or oxidation of food is stored in the form of ATP. ATP means adenosine triphosphate, and adenosine triphosphate is said to be the energy currency of the cell. Do you know why it is called so? It is called so because it is the immediate source of energy to the cell. Now let's see the definition of respiration. Respiration is the biochemical process in which glucose is oxidized or broken down in the presence of oxygen to liberate energy. That means respiration is a process. It says it is a biochemical process, means chemicals are involved in this process in which glucose, an organic compound, is broken down or it is oxidized in the presence of oxygen to liberate energy. That means it gives us energy, and carbon dioxide is a byproduct or a waste product. Now tell me one thing. Do plants breathe? Technically, plants do not breathe, but plants do respire. Like animals, they use oxygen and break down sugars to release energy. This energy is used to carry out life processes and for basic body functions. These include repairing and replacing tissues and building complex molecules such as proteins. We have already studied that the energy is used up in performing different life processes. During respiration, plants release carbon dioxide and water vapors like us human beings. Now, what are the basics of respiration? Firstly, food is used as source of energy. Now, already I have told you that what is the source of energy? It is the food that we eat. So, the food is the source of energy. Oxygen is needed for oxidation of food. For the process of oxidation or for the breakdown of the food, oxygen is required. Energy is released as a result of oxidation of food and trapped as ATP. Now, when food is oxidized, it gives energy or it liberates energy, and this energy is trapped in ATP molecule, which is said as adenosine triphosphate. Next, carbon dioxide and water are produced as end products. As a result of oxidation of food, energy is liberated, as well as carbon dioxide and water are the end products. Let us summarize the equation of respiration. C6H12O6, that is glucose, plus 6O2, this is oxygen. That means the food or the glucose is oxidized. In the presence of certain enzymes, it changes into 6CO2, that means carbon dioxide, 6 carbon dioxide molecules plus 6 molecules of water, and energy is liberated. Now we are going to discuss the different types of respiration. Respiration comprises of two major types, that is external respiration as well as cellular respiration. Cellular respiration can also be classified as anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. Now we focus on external respiration. What is external respiration? Respiration involves exchange of gases between the organism and the external environment. What happens? The plants obtain oxygen from their environment. Environment means the surroundings, and return carbon dioxide and water vapor into it. This mere exchange of gases is known as external respiration. Mechanism of exchange of gases. How does exchange of gases takes place? Plants require oxygen for respiration. No specialized organs for gaseous exchange but have stomata and lenticels. That means that plants, they require oxygen for respiration, but they do not have any special organ for respiration, except that they have stomata and lenticels. Now, reason why plants don't need respiratory organs. What could be the general reason? Each plant part takes care of its own gas exchange needs. There is very little transport of gases from one plant part to another. That means each part of the plant is capable of exchanging gas, and it has very little transport of gases from one plant part to the other plant part. Say if it is from leaf to the stem, so very less transport of oxygen takes place. Secondly, plants do not present great demands for gas exchange. The need of plants for oxygen is very less. Respiration in plants is far lower than animals. That means our oxygen need is more than the oxygen need of the plants. So, oxygen requirement will be met by photosynthesis, where oxygen will be directly released into cells. That means that during the process of photosynthesis, we have studied carbon dioxide is taken in through the stomata to prepare the food, and as a byproduct, oxygen is given out. This oxygen occupies the space in between the air spaces of the spongy parenchyma cells. So, this oxygen is again utilized for respiration. Diffusion of gases. Less living cells located close to the surface of plants. Example, thick woody stems. Living cells are organized as thin layer beneath bark. That means under the bark or under the external thick covering, there is a thin layer of living cells. The openings in the stem are called as the lenticels. Most cells or part contact with air. Loose packing of parenchyma cells in leaves. We have already studied the internal structure of leaf, where we have seen that the palisade parenchyma and the spongy parenchyma are loosely packed and contact with air. So, loose packing of parenchyma cells in leaves, stems and roots provide an interconnected network of air spaces where oxygen moves in. Now, in plants, how does gaseous exchange take place in plants? So, in plants, the atmospheric air moves in and out by simple diffusion method. That means simply the oxygen gas is taken in and carbon dioxide is given out. That takes place through either by general body surface of the plant. General body surface means the outer body covering of the plant, that is the stems, the roots, fruits and seeds, or lenticels, that are openings in the bark of the tree trunk, or through stomata present in the leaves of young stems. Different parts of a plant have different methods of obtaining oxygen and carbon dioxide. Let us see how leaves of a plant respire. This picture that is displayed here is of the transverse section of a leaf, where these are the upper epidermis and this is a layer of lower epidermis. This lower epidermis is interrupted at interval by an opening which is called as the stoma. Singular is stoma and plural is stomata. Next to the upper epidermis is a layer of palisade mesophyll cells, and these are filled with chloroplasts. Just below the palisade mesophyll cells are spongy mesophyll cells, and you can see that they have got large air spaces or air cavities between them. The fresh air fills the air cavities and provides oxygen to the surrounding cells. Oxygen gas diffuses into the cells and carbon dioxide gas diffuses outside the air cavities and moves out into the atmosphere. Young stems also have stomata. In old woody stems, lenticels develop. Lenticels develop below the bark to ensure gaseous exchange. This is the picture of an old woody stem which shows small openings on its bark. These small openings are called as the lenticels. So gaseous exchange takes place through lenticels also. You can see this is the cellular diagram of the bark which shows these openings like this. These are the openings which are called as the lenticels. The oxygen gas from the environment enters through them and the carbon dioxide moves out. You can see here in the picture, this is the main root and these are the secondary roots. These secondary roots have got root hairs as well as the main root has root hairs over them. So gaseous exchange takes place through the root hairs. This is the structure of a root hair, and the brown colored particles are of the soil. So the oxygen gas which is trapped in between the gaps of the soil particles move into the cells of the root hair, and thus they pass on from cell to cell inside the main root, and then they are transported through the vascular system into the stem and then to the leaves, etc. Now we'll study how gaseous exchange takes place in the light. During photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide in the air spaces of the spongy layer falls below 0.04%. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. From the atmosphere, it moves into the stomata, and from the stomata, it moves into the spongy layers of the stem or the leaves. Oxygen in the cells moves through the stomata and it moves into the atmosphere. Both respiration and photosynthesis occur at the same time during the daytime. But photosynthesis is more visible than respiration because the oxygen gas that is produced as an end product or the byproduct of photosynthesis is used up during the daytime by the cells. So respiration during the daytime is not quite visible. The rate of both process depends on the light intensity. Gaseous exchange in the dark. How does gases exchange during the night? Respiration alone is taking place during the night because we already know that photosynthesis takes place only during the daytime. Less oxygen inside the spongy layer than outside. Oxygen from atmosphere moves inside through the lenticels and then they move into the spongy layer. Now, as the stomata are closed during the daytime, so gaseous exchange is taking place through the lenticels, not through the stomata during the daytime. Keep it in mind. Carbon dioxide from cell respiration moves to the lenticels, and from lenticels it moves into the atmosphere. The picture displayed here shows respiration in a plant during day as well as during the night. You can see that during daytime, carbon dioxide is taken in by the plant. This carbon dioxide is taken for photosynthesis, and oxygen gas is released. Oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis, but this oxygen during the daytime is utilized for respiration by the plants. On the contrary, during the night, oxygen gas is taken in by the plants and carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. The oxygen gas is taken by the lenticels, as during the night photosynthesis does not take place and the stomata remain closed. Please note that respiration is a continuous process. It goes on during the day as well as during the night. Now that was all about external respiration. We'll now focus on the cellular respiration. As the name says, cellular respiration, that means this respiration takes place inside the cells of a plant. The biochemical process which occurs within cells and tissues and oxidizes food to obtain energy is known as cellular respiration. Various enzymes which are known as the biocatalysts. You might have studied the meaning of catalyst in chemistry. These are the chemicals which enhance or reduce the rate of a chemical reaction. So the various enzymes catalyze this process. On the basis of utilization of oxygen, cellular respiration is of two types: anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. Cellular respiration is the process by which mitochondria break down food molecules to produce ATP in plants and animals. This means that cellular respiration is taking place inside the cells, but where, in which organelle? It takes place inside the mitochondria, where food is broken down and ATP is produced both in plants as well as in animals. Nutrients plus oxygen oxidized into water plus ATP. ATP means energy molecules plus carbon dioxide. Secondly, changes organic chemical energy into inorganic chemical energy. Now, this is the opposite of photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, we had studied that inorganic compounds, they combine together to make up an organic compound. That is, through carbon dioxide plus water, they combine to make up glucose, which is an organic compound. But this was happening in photosynthesis. Respiration is the reverse. Here, the organic chemical energy which is stored in the glucose is oxidized or is broken down into inorganic chemical energy, which is known as ATP molecule or adenosine triphosphate molecule. There are three stages of cellular respiration. They are glycolysis, citric acid cycle, which is also called as the Krebs cycle, and electron transport chain. Glycolysis means anaerobic, that does not require oxygen. Citric acid or Krebs cycle means aerobic respiration, which requires oxygen. And electron transport chain means aerobic, does not require oxygen. These are the three steps which are included in cellular respiration: glycolysis, citric acid cycle, and electron transport chain. Now we'll see what happens to glucose. The glucose gets converted into ATP and pyruvic acid during the glycolysis phase. This is called as glycolysis. Pyruvic acid gets converted into carbon dioxide, NADH and FADH, and ATP molecule is generated. This cycle is called as citric acid cycle. NADH and FADH plus oxygen enters into the electron transport chain, and water and ATP are generated. I just told you the summary of cellular respiration. As description of cellular respiration, its process, etc. are not in your syllabus. Now let's discuss aerobic respiration. We have already studied earlier that cellular respiration has two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is a type of respiration which leads to a complete oxidation of stored food, that is organic substance, in the presence of oxygen, and releases carbon dioxide, water, and a large amount of energy present in respiratory substrates. Such type of respiration is generally found in higher organisms, and this occurs in three phases, that is glycolysis, citric acid cycle, and electron transport. Aerobic respiration in plants carries out throughout the day and night. It does not stop. In the light, photosynthesis is faster than respiration because of the availability of light, availability of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide produced is quickly used up by photosynthesis because the respiration process gives out carbon dioxide, and that is used by the photosynthesis process. This is the reason it is called that respiration and photosynthesis are two opposite reactions. You can summarize the equation of aerobic respiration as C6H12O6 plus 6O2 plus 6H2O is equal to 6CO2 plus 12H2O plus energy. The energy that we gain is in the form of ATP molecules, and 1 mole of glucose gives us 36 ATP molecules in plants. Now we'll discuss about anaerobic respiration. It occurs in complete absence of oxygen. It occurs in many tissues of higher plants, seeds in storage, fleshy fruits and succulent plants such as cacti temporarily take to a kind of respiration, generally occur in lower organisms like bacteria and fungi. This results in incomplete oxidation of stored food and formation of carbon dioxide and ethyl alcohol, and sometimes also various organic acids such as malic acid, citric acid, oxalic acid, tartaric acid, etc. Here, very little energy is released in this process. The equation of anaerobic respiration can be summarized as C6H12O6 with the help of certain enzymes. It is converted into C2H5OH, which is called as ethyl alcohol, plus carbon dioxide plus energy is liberated. This process is also called as fermentation. This process of oxidation in microbes is known as fermentation. It is quite similar to anaerobic respiration in case of higher plants. Let us learn what fermentation is. Fermentation accounts for only a partial breakdown of glucose. That means during fermentation process, glucose is partially broken down. Whereas in aerobic respiration, it is completely broken down into carbon dioxide and water. In fermentation, there is a net gain of only 2 molecules of ATP for each molecule of glucose that is degraded to pyruvic acid, whereas many more molecules of ATP are generated under aerobic conditions. This means that after the process of fermentation, only 2 molecules of ATP are generated, whereas in aerobic respiration, we get 36 molecules of ATP, which is much higher than fermentation. NADH is oxidized to NAD+ rather slowly in fermentation. However, the reaction is very vigorous. Vigorous means very fast in case of aerobic respiration. Now in fermentation, when oxygen is not available, anaerobic respiration or fermentation can follow glycolysis in order to continue to produce energy. This is not as efficient as aerobic respiration and produces far fewer ATPs. Just now I told you all that only 2 molecules of ATP are produced as a result of fermentation. There are 2 types of fermentation. First one is lactic acid fermentation and second one is known as alcoholic fermentation. We'll deal with lactic acid fermentation. Lactic acid fermentation occurs in muscle cells during strenuous exercise when a lot of energy is required and oxygen is scarce, means less. Glucose gets converted into pyruvic acid and pyruvic acid gets converted into lactic acid plus a little amount of ATP is produced. The lactic acid is transferred from the muscles cells to the liver where it will be converted back into pyruvic acid. The buildup of lactic acid in the muscles causes muscle cramp. Muscle cramp means that twitching, that pain in the muscles. Alcoholic fermentation. Yeast and some bacteria cells are capable of alcoholic fermentation, during which glucose is broken down to release carbon dioxide and ethyl alcohol. Glucose without oxygen gets converted into pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid gets converted into ethyl alcohol, plus carbon dioxide is generated and ATP is produced. The bubbles formed by the carbon dioxide make the bread rise. You might have seen small holes in the bread. Those small holes are due to the carbon dioxide that was trapped in the dough. And when we bake the dough, that carbon dioxide is released, thus leaving gaps in the bread. And then the bread becomes quite spongy. The alcohol released turns grape juice into wine. Now we'll see the difference between anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration occurs in the absence of oxygen, whereas aerobic respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic occurs at cell's cytoplasm, whereas aerobic respiration occurs in the mitochondria of the cell. Anaerobic respiration yields or produces small amount of ATP, that is 2 molecules per 1 molecule of glucose. Whereas in aerobic respiration, 38 molecules are generated in animals and 36 ATP molecules are produced in plants. Energy released is small in quantity in anaerobic respiration. Energy released is large in quantity in aerobic respiration. The respiratory substrate glucose is partially oxidized in anaerobic respiration, whereas in aerobic respiration, respiratory substrate glucose is completely oxidized. In anaerobic respiration, final products are lactic acid, ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide, and 2 molecules of ATP. Final products of aerobic respiration are carbon dioxide, water, and 36 molecules of ATP in plants. Anaerobic respiration involves fermentation of pyruvate to lactate in muscle cells and carbon dioxide and ethanol in plants and yeast. Aerobic respiration does not involve fermentation. So we have seen that cellular respiration is completed in 3 phases. Glycolysis, where breakdown of glucose occurs, Krebs cycle, which is also known as citric acid cycle, and ETC, which is called as electron transport chain. We can see here cellular respiration is summarized as glucose enters the glycolysis phase. Without oxygen, it produces fermentation process, and lactic acid is produced in animals, whereas ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide is produced in plants, fungi, and in bacteria. With the help of oxygen, glucose gets oxidized. This is known as cellular respiration, and it produces acetyl coenzyme A, enters into Krebs cycle and electron transport system. The electron transport system is the third stage where ATP is produced. Now we'll see the difference between respiration and photosynthesis. Respiration, as I've earlier told you also, that respiration is the reverse of photosynthesis. Respiration uses the products of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis uses the product of respiration. Now what is the product of respiration? The product of respiration is carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is used up by photosynthesis to make its food, and oxygen is the byproduct. The oxygen, which is the byproduct of photosynthesis, is used up by respiration and it releases carbon dioxide. Earlier also I told you that the process of respiration and the process of photosynthesis are two opposite reactions. Now what is the similarity between respiration and photosynthesis? The similarity between them is that both are metabolic processes. What is the difference? That respiration is a catabolic reaction and photosynthesis is a process of anabolism. Respiration occurs in all living cells. Photosynthesis occurs in cells containing chloroplast or chlorophyll. Respiration takes place in absence and presence of light, whereas photosynthesis requires light. It occurs in the presence of light. Respiration uses glucose and oxygen, but photosynthesis uses carbon dioxide and water. Respiration produces carbon dioxide and water. Photosynthesis produces glucose and oxygen. So here you can see that both the reactions, both the processes are opposite to each other. Just see, one is using glucose and oxygen, and the other one, that is the photosynthesis, is producing glucose and carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis is using carbon dioxide and water, but respiration is producing carbon dioxide and water. In respiration, cell loses weight, but in photosynthesis, cell gains weight. That is why respiration process is also called as catabolism, and the process of photosynthesis is called as anabolic reaction. Respiration is a chemical energy which gets converted into heat energy, and it is stored into ATP. Whereas photosynthesis, the energy is gained by solar energy, and this energy gets converted into chemical energy. What is the significance of respiration? The process of respiration plays a very significant role in plant life. The process releases energy stored in the food and makes it available to the plant to perform its various life processes. A part of energy released is stored as energy, while the rest is released as heat energy. The energy released is used for various life processes performed by the plant. It removes carbon dioxide produced during various chemical reactions from the plant body, as it can be harmful to the plant. Plants also utilize a great amount of carbon dioxide produced during respiration for photosynthesis. This maintains the balance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So I'm done with the topic now. For better understanding, do watch the video twice, and there are certain assignments for you. You have to read the chapter from page 42 to 46 and learn the keywords that are given on page number 46. So, it's a bye for now. Stay blessed.